thank the grace of heaven and the virtue of our predecessors, masters and predecessors that I have this, and transmitters that I have this opportunity to discuss topics in the book called The Shower of Wisdom, a collection of teachers or Qigong teachers' works. Okay. First of all, I don't know how long have you. When was the last time you had this class, Shower of Wisdom? Long time ago. More than a month ago. Okay, definitely. Okay, all right. Well, anyway, just to refresh then. Okay, this Shower of Wisdom book, translated by Huang Wenren. Okay, he apparently is a Taiwanese lecturer or transmitter. Not quite sure. Okay, but based on the translator's notes here, this was a translation of a channeling done by our holy teacher Qigong in October 1983 in Fusan City. Now Fusan, I would have to Fengshan City in Taiwan. Okay, so I'm not so sure which temple, because this doesn't describe which temple it occurred in, and so I'm assuming that. I'm going to assume that this book is from, this translation is from the group, the Fa Yi Congde group. I'm assuming that, okay, only because Fa Yi Congde has a great deal of professors and college students in their group, and I'm sure some of them had, learned English or whatever, and so therefore did this translation. Now, this translation was done according to the translator's note in October 1993, or was completed in 1993. So it was done about approximately 10 years after this event. Okay, the event that occurred. Okay, so, and according to the translation here, it says the seminar was presented in the form of 10 lecturers, and it was intended for the most, and I quote here, the most sincere advanced cultivators, unquote. Okay, so apparently what's basically said in here is really for those who really are pursuing this cultivation very sincerely. Okay, so I don't know how many of you actually have read this completely. Have any of you actually read this? No?
Yes.
Okay, some of you have? Good.
But not remember anymore.
Okay, but not remember. Okay, it's almost like not reading it, not having read it about it, right? Okay, well, yeah, I mean, okay, well, keep in mind that this was presented in 1983, or when it was first told. Okay, so therefore. It was way before like what we know about today, like Lecture Liu's classes about the Buddha nature class. Okay, so when you read this though, when I was reading it, it did occur to me that this seems, even though it is for the most sincere advanced cultivators, it does seem that it's sort of like it's the basic things that as cultivators you need to to do. Okay, so anyway, let's go to chapter 6, which is page 48 in my book. I don't know if it's yours. It's the same. Okay, it says let's talk about Xing, or the mind, idea, heart, and soul. Okay, okay, so I'll go along and I'll read it, and then we'll discuss it as we go along. Okay, forward. Okay, in the forward it says, there's a saying, the body is the vessel in which to place one's Xing, one's heart and mind, and Xing is the master body. Do all of you want to govern this Xing? Okay, so basically a Qigong teacher is asking the audience about this. Okay, so basically he then goes into a discussion about the Xing, or the heart and mind. Okay, now when I was reading this, it does seem to me the teacher is trying to allude to what we call the Buddha nature, but he mostly talks about how our human nature should reflect or act. Not reflect. To manifest itself. Okay, right. A person's soul should be of the utmost purity. A person's mind should be tranquil, and neither the soul nor the mind should be disturbed or affected by outside influences or worries. Okay, so that's the main concept to grasp. And then so he continues on saying, a person's soul should be pure, for when it is pure, truth will remain inside of it. Okay, a person should be firm with righteousness, and then material enticements from the outside will not intrude into his mind. The way for a person to reach the level of a saint is by not allowing his mind to waver and to keep his anger from rising. Okay? If a person's mind is full of many ideas, his worries will naturally increase. If a person's mind is occupied by doubt, then his mind will naturally produce many internal disturbances. When a person's mind produces thoughts, all kinds of desires will consequently arise. When a person's goal of life wavers, then the will that he has to achieve his plan will cease. Okay, so what is Qigong talking about? First of all, he's saying that, okay, a person's soul should be of utmost purity and a person's mind should be tranquil. So on the surface, it would seem to me we're talking about a soul versus a mind, two different things, okay? And neither should be disturbed, okay, or affected by outside influences. So, but here, when you're reading this, okay, and also if you have also read about or listened to the lectures of Lecture Liu on the Buddha nature, okay, then here you begin to see that actually Qigong teacher is talking about the human nature aspect, okay, not the Buddha nature aspect, okay, all right, because why should a person's soul be pure and a mind be tranquil? Okay, because the idea is the fact that our Buddha nature is encased, if I may use the word encased, in our human nature. Okay, so in order for us to be able to manifest our Buddha nature, we need to have what? A very, I'll call it transparent for now, transparent encasement of our human nature, meaning the fact that our human nature needs to be what? Very pure, calm, or tranquil in this case, okay? And then also pure in the sense that it's transparent to allow that Buddha nature to manifest, okay? So that is why, yeah, when we read about this, yeah, you do get a sense that, yeah, Todi teacher is talking about the human nature aspect of it. Okay, so and of course neither of those things, the soul nor the mind, based on this description, which is our human nature, neither of them should be influenced by what? Outside influences. Okay, meaning the fact that we don't dwell on those or have the outside influences based on what? Our 5 aggregates, okay, influence us. So this way, the mind quote soul slash soul. I'll use the two words together. Mind slash soul can remain tranquil and transparent. Okay, so that the Buddha nature can rise. Okay, so basically, it gives a few examples about a person should be firm with righteousness. Then material enticements from the outside will not intrude his mind. But here he's really more talking about like when we manifest our Buddha nature. We have a sense of righteousness. Okay, righteousness meaning what? What is right, what is wrong, and so therefore we should be able to differentiate properly, and like later on he talks about the fact that you should not have there's the three is it the 3 or 4 the 4 don'ts? No, 4 don'ts, right? In lecture, not Lecture Liu, but Guardian Liu's, remember his basic knowledge that we should all know is it for the Xing Ban? I think it's for the Xing Ban, right? That class? Oh no, second class? Second class. Okay, I don't remember. But one of the classes you have to memorize all those 5 aspects that we have to, or one of them is what? 四物, right? 四物, the 4 don'ts, I guess you want to call it. It's very much like saying, see no evil, hear no evil, that stuff. Okay, it's the monkeys. Okay, so anyway, so the idea is that he just gives some examples about minds full of ideas, then worries naturally arise, occupied by doubt, then you naturally produce many disturbances, etc. Okay, so basically he's just saying the fact that our human nature mind needs to be what? tranquil, and transparent. Well, in my description of the of the Buddha nature, and I'm the human person, it also needs to be transparent. Okay, transparent meaning the fact that it does not obstruct the manifestation of the Buddha nature. Because remember, as Lecturer Liu says that even though we do have this Buddha nature, it does not contend with the human nature to see who's boss, right? Okay, so therefore the Buddha nature basically just sits back there and says, okay, I'm what I am, and that's it. Whereas our human nature basically says, it's also saying, hey, I'm also what I am, and I want to do what I want to do. Okay, and what that nature wants to do is based on, of course, our senses, and then our own influences from the external world. Okay, so therefore it is important that it is important to realize the fact that our human nature, even though sure, it can also be a very benevolent. Or it has a benevolent. It can have a benevolent manifestation, but those manifestations are still based on what we know, knowledge. Okay, what we learn, knowledge, etc. What we can sense, or the outside world. It is not necessarily based on wisdom. Okay, so that is why that when we deal with situations, okay. Lecturer Liu constantly tries to beat into us, saying that when we encounter those situations, it is utmost important that you allow your Buddha nature to manifest, and so therefore, in a way, I guess, guide your human nature in terms of trying to resolve situations. Okay, because if you do not do that, even though you may have good intentions, okay, and you think that you have good intentions, etc., from your human nature part, okay, it does not always produce a good outcome. Okay, for example, I'll give you an example. Okay, let's say you're in a grocery store, you're buying things, and you're at the cashier, and you're paying the stuff, and that person's calculating the amount you owe, and then he gives you amount, and then you give him the cash, and then he gives you some change. Okay, now we know that as a cultivator, I should be a good person, I should be an honest person, right? Okay, so honesty is one of your things that you have, and then you look at your change, and you go, oh, he made a mistake. He gave you a few bucks, some more change than what is tallied on the sheet. So you're being an honest person. What do you say? Oh yeah, you're gonna say, oh yeah, cashier, you made a mistake. Here you gave me more than I need. See, let me show you, the amount you tally, and this is how much you gave me. On the surface, it seems like a pretty good thing. You're being very honest. But here's where the wisdom kicks in, where your honesty is a little bit where the wisdom versus your honesty. Okay. Let's assume that you're alone in the supermarket and nobody's there, and nobody else is involved. Nobody else is nearby, and you're just talking to the cashier. On the surface, it seems that that's the correct thing to do, and there's no harm. Okay, so the cashier notices his mistake, and therefore he corrects it, etc. He thanks you for it and sends you on your way. But let's assume that this person his manager standing nearby. Let's assume that his manager, the manager walks around the cashiers to see what's going on. And then he noticed, there's something commotion at your cashier, and he comes over. And then you're in the middle of saying, you made a mistake. Here's the, let me give you the change back. Do you think that still will have a good outcome or not? It may still maintain a good outcome depending upon how the manager perceives the situation. He may say, this guy made an honest mistake. On the other hand, you may look at the flip side. The manager thinks, wow, you're a hiree, and you're making mistakes, and you're doing, giving out more change than whatever. Maybe I need to review your application for this job a little bit better. So in other words, on the other hand, you could say you could get the cashier in trouble, so to speak, or not trouble necessarily, but a little bit more involved or scrutinized by his manager. Okay, so in that sense, how then should you react? Should you just still say, oh no, I'm honesty is my policy, so I have to do this? Or do you say, okay, let it slide, or perhaps come back later when the manager's not there?
I would leave the change on the table.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's one way to do it. Okay, because you'll notice that some cash stations have what they have these little donation things. When you can throw the change in. Because let's say you get change a few pennies. Sometimes they'll throw it in. You'll see that sometimes on some cashier stations. Okay. Others they have donations where you can make whatever. The point is this though. It is one thing to have a judgment based on your human nature, because honestly, we talk about these eight virtues or 5 constants, blah, 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 all these things, right? And it's great to have that. But you also need the wisdom behind it to let you know when is it appropriate sometimes. Okay, so therefore, it also requires us to not just use our human nature goodness, I'll call it that, but also some wisdom. You need some wisdom. Okay, so that's why wisdom, very good example, and people like to use it. Okay, a guy is drowning, a person's drowning. Okay, your goodness wants to. Oh, I need to help that person, right? Okay, well that's true. Great. The principle is to help that person. The question is how. How you get that? If you know how to swim, no problem. If you don't know how to swim, do you still jump in the water? Obviously not, right? Because of the fact that, you understand that you can't swim and you'll just make the situation, instead of one person drowning, you have 2 persons drowning. Okay, so what good is that? Okay, so therefore, it requires us to have our wisdom, behind it. So that's why even the Buddhists and saints, when they tell us about, you should do this, you should do that, they also say what? You do it with wisdom. You don't do it just because of the fact that the rule says you do this. Even Confucius, when he talks about it, the example he gives is what? When one of his disciples was being beaten by his father because he mistakenly, in helping his father plant the crops, I guess you want to call it that, for the season, he accidentally destroyed the roots of some of the plants, the crops, because when he was hoeing. And because of that, his father became very angry and started beating him. And then, so therefore, he being very filial, almost filial, just stood there, but stayed there and took the beating, And so therefore, many of his disciples knew about that situation, told Confucius, wow, isn't he filial? He didn't, strike back against his father or whatever. And what did Confucius say? No, he was not filial. You would think, wait a minute, what are you saying? He's not filial. And that's when Confucius explained the fact, when your beating is light, fine, take the beating. If the beating is very harsh, where there can be serious injury, then what do? You have to run away.
Take off.
You have to run away, because the fact that you have, because with wisdom, it looks at the bigger picture versus when we just following strict rules. Wisdom looks at the fact that, you can take a beating, that's fine. But when you get injured, what is the outcome of that? The outcome of that is that same people saying, wow, this father is really a bad father, beating his son to death or whatever, let's say, assuming that, it got very serious. Okay, so therefore, you must also take the outcome, because, so that's why, when Buddhists talks about us saying how we, because one of the things that we as people are individuals, so therefore we have our own ideas of doing things, right? So therefore, when we do things, it's possible it can come in conflict with other people's way of doing things, And so therefore, and that's very natural. That's very natural because we still have this, what we call the 四象, the 4 marks. Marks? It's called marks? Okay. It's called
Diamond Sutra.
Okay, the 4 marks of identity, I guess you want to call it that. Okay, 4 marks of identity, the ego, personality, blah, 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 right? Okay, so therefore, and because of that, we do have differences. And when we have differences, we can come in conflict. It can, And so therefore, what does Buddha say? Because when you have something that's like that, it's not important to say, okay, you stand on your ground and say, oh, I'm right. I'm 100% right. I'm following this particular rule. Okay, and the other person, yeah, I'm also right. I'm following this other particular rule. So what happens then? So that's why what Buddhist always tells us that when you come into these situations, the most important thing is to what? In Chinese, we call it 圆满. Meaning, on the one hand, you could translate and say, it's a compromise between two people agreeing, or it's a satisfaction to both parties, etc., which is really by definition a compromise. Okay, when you have two parties who have different views, a compromise is when both at least will give something but gain something. Okay, so the idea is that the situation itself must resolve in a very satisfactory way. Okay, and why is that very important? Why is that so important? Any ideas? It's important because of what we call karma. That's why Buddhists always say, regardless of what situation you're in, good or bad, the outcome should still be what? You have 善缘, meaning what? A good, I'll call it karma for now, using yuan as karma. Okay, because whatever you want to do, you want to create 善缘 or good karma. Okay, because after all, if you do create bad karma, then you get into the point where there is a bad negative link connection between you and that person, which needs to be resolved in the future. Okay, but by establishing a good karma, however, everybody's happy, so you don't establish any of that negative karma. Okay, and in fact, it is because of all these things, that these situations that we have in our lives, that end up creating a lot of karma in our lives, which then we end up what? Having to resolve by how? By having to come back. By having to come back. Okay, so that's why it's very important to have that. Okay, so anyway, I'm actually delving a lot into this because actually what I'm talking about is really the whole chapter here. Okay, so without going any deeper, is there any questions or anything like that? No? Yeah, what? Yes, what?
I think supposedly, if we could use our Buddha nature, and supposedly that we shouldn't be falling into either way.
That is correct.
It needs to be where they call middle path.
That is correct. Yeah, like I said, the only reason why you come into, yeah.
Right.
Well,
No,
If you fall either way, it's not absolute. But if it's absolute, it's something that you don't.
Yeah. No. It's true that as long as that's why we say 常住真心, right? That we always have to be at one with our Buddha nature to be, so that you won't go into those extremes, okay? Or what we call that 中庸, okay? But there's an external factor that even though we say, as long as we're, even though we're in this physical environment, we are at one with our Buddha nature, which means that our state of mind is what? In an absolute, right, state, which means neither good or bad, right? But that's missing something. We also have, because we now are in this physical form, there's also a link to our eighth consciousness. And that's called the what? Yeah, and what is that? Storehouse. So that means all the previous lives, I don't know how many Mahakalpas, it's infinite actually, because our spirit never dies, right? Our Buddha nature never dies. And we know, we're not always up there, right? We're always coming down, right? So we accumulate life. It could be good or bad, but the problem is if you don't have either any merits or virtues or whatever to offset, not offset, to block, maybe that's a better term, those bad alaya influences, it could affect you. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. That's to the level of what kind of state of mind you are in.
Exactly.
That's why if you are Buddha though, but let me ask you, throughout the ages, how many Buddhas existed among us? Not very many. I would say, less than 1%? Maybe even less, maybe even 1,000 of that, okay? So unless you are in that state. And the reason why they're in that state is also because they've gotten rid of most of their alaya influences. You know that? Yeah, they've gotten rid of it. I mean, when I say gotten rid of, that's really a misnomer. It's not that they erased it, but they have accumulated so much good virtues of merits that it can block it. Block it. Because that connection, alaya, connects to your seventh. And then that's where the three subtle conceptions are formed. You know, san xi, that then leads to, you know, if you want to go technical detail, the six course, and then the six defile states.
Defilements, yeah, right.
六感心.
Right.
And then that can't, that's all, and that's even before you form a first thought. Yeah, so that's a precursor.
So that state of mind is really the intention that you have to.
Not really,
on
not exactly.
purpose,
Okay.
Not on purpose.
Well,
that
here,
you
okay.
want
Well,
to
when you're discussing about that level, okay, you're really, because I took your interpretation of what you said about the Buddha nature. Okay, yeah, it is really different from what I conceive it as what Kai's talking about, lecture Kai's talking about. Okay, meaning the fact that when you are in accord with Buddha nature, okay, in accord with Buddha nature does not mean the fact that, oh, okay, you're in a state of Buddhahood necessarily. Okay, because of the fact that why? You're still human right here. You're still a human person dealing with a situation. So being in accord with your Buddha nature just means the fact that you can, I guess you could say, make use of that Buddha nature wisdom to help you resolve that the situation. Okay, whatever it may be. It does not mean that you won't encounter the situation. You will still encounter. The fact that you encounter it is the fact that means the fact that you're still human. You're still in this world. Okay, so yeah, what lecture Kai's talking about in a way is the fact that
Karma, because karma,
Yeah.
even if you're Buddha, in
you
this
still can have
existence,
karma, right?
Karma will still come.
Of course,
Right?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
Good with the
so
bad,
so
right?
so one of that karma is that because we have planted the seeds, or in the
Well,
alaya
in our
consciousness.
previous, yeah,
Yeah, no, it's an alaya. The alaya consciousness. If we have one thought, we do nothing. Let's say I just have a thought, whatever, an idea, pop in your head, and I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. Even though we say, oh, yeah, you don't see any result. True. But the seed is planted. It's already stored in the eighth.
Yeah,
Get
because
it?
of that thought.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That has to do with
in
the next
future
chapter.
lives,
Next
future
chap-
lives,
next chapter talks about
if
that.
if the conditions, because they're external, they're secondary causes too, right?
Right.
They're secondary. So depending on the secondary conditions, if it's, if they all come together, then that thought in
Yeah,
the
can mature,
eighth,
right.
which is the primary, then will bear fruit. Or
Right,
something.
matures and
So
bear fruit.
that's why it's key to try to block that or get rid of it. Get the eighth, so that no matter if the second conditions can happen, doesn't happen. You get it? Because you don't have a primary, or you block the primary. That you know this. It's like saying to create a I don't know, a fire, you need what? Fuel and what? Oxygen. So let's say oxygen is the primary. Let's just say, and the fuel are it could be wood, it could be gasoline, it could be anything. So if you don't have the oxygen, I don't care how much gasoline you pour. You try to light a match, it's not going to work, right? Isn't that true? Right? Right?
Yeah.
So the key is to get rid of the primary. Well, primary is the easiest one to get. The other are always mixed, right? Because there are other whole bunch of secondary conditions that come and go, right?
The
Right? It's
primary
hard.
is easy to get rid of, no?
No. The key is to get rid of that. That's the best way.
Well,
That's what
you
I'm
basically getting rid of the root cause. That's
Yeah,
the reason
right,
why.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
The root
but
all
yeah,
came from
it's the
the
root
thought,
cause,
so the
right?
thought is the
Yeah.
root.
Right. Well, yeah, that's okay.
block
That well, we can talk about that when we delve to the
And
next
that
chapter
ends up
because in a way it talks
how-
about nian, okay, or xing, or ideas of the mind. Okay. So anyway, I'm digressing. I went too deep into this discussion of the xing, but the idea is the fact that right now, Jigong Buddha is only talking about our human xing, okay, and that's why he continues on to talk about the second part. He goes, all of you should often be guan xing, okay, means in which to close. Figuratively means concern. Literally means to close one xing. Okay, that's what it's saying, right? Okay, and then you should be kai xing, which is the opposite of that. Okay, so what he's talking about that we guanxing, we close our hearts and minds to what? Things that are what? Not good. Okay, and then we open our hearts to things that are good, the opposite of that. So basically that's what he's talking about here. Okay, here to read it says, in other words, to close xing means to be concerned enough about yourself, true self, to close your mind to all evil ideas and thoughts, and never again never again let them appear in your mind. To open xing means to open your mind to truth and propriety and allow all righteous ideas and thoughts to take root and be revealed. Without evil and only goodness in our xing will we not be happy. The following is a list of evil thoughts and ideas you should guard against and close off from your mind. Greedy xing, unrestrained xing, angry xing, obstinate xing, evil xing, biased xing, proud xing, and doubting xing. And the following, which is the opposites, are good xing, sincere xing, righteous xing, true xing. Okay, so etc. Okay, so you can read for you. So basically, these are just examples of how we as humans, okay, I mean in terms of using our human mind, should differentiate between good and bad. Okay, all right. So again, he's talking about really cultivating from our human nature part to try to allow us to get to our Buddha nature part. And he talks about the Buddha nature part a little bit more when we go into the next chapter. Okay, so to continue further, the reason that a saint wants to receive Tao is because he wants to find his true self. But the reason why normal people want to receive Tao is because they want to receive Tao's favor. Is that correct? Ask yourself that, ask yourself, why is it that you receive the Tao?
A lot of people want something.
Is it because
Your
Be-
way.
is it because you find that you realize that Tao is the ultimate truth and you need to go after to seek it, or is it because you say at least if there's something divine, maybe it can benefit you, right, yourself? Okay, so really, yeah, from the human mind soul aspect, yeah, it is true. We do tend to want to find things that can benefit ourselves, right? Okay, whether it's it doesn't matter with our lives, it's any aspect of our lives. Okay, we want to seek something that can help us, help us improve. Let's put it that way, improve. Okay, and we don't necessarily seek the Tao because we find, oh wow, this is the ultimate truth. This is the it's the truth. It's everything. Okay, so all right. So to read on, if a person cannot recognize his original mind, then he cannot enlighten his mind. And if he cannot recognize his original nature or soul, in this case, then he cannot enlighten his soul. If a person cannot recognize his original mind, then it does not help him at all to learn about Tao. If a person cannot enlighten his soul, then he does not gain anything from all the cultivation methods he has learned. That's kind of harsh, huh? A little bit. Okay, so yeah, what he's saying is this, and I guess you can really relate it to how Lecture Liu talks about what? When you cultivate the Tao, you need to use what? The non-creating, non-ending, 不生不灭.
Yeah, your Buddha nature. That's right.
Well,
Your
不生不灭,
holy
that nature, okay?
Holy mind.
Because if you use the nature that has 有生有灭, has creation and has ending, you'll never get it, right? That's what does the Lecture Liu say? So basically, this is exactly what it's saying. But I guess Lecture Liu just put it in a few less words. But the point is that you need to use your true, non-created mind, okay, and non-destructive cannot be destructed mind to seek. Okay, so because when you can do that, then you're really, truly cultivating, if you want. Okay, so a person's mind can produce these kinds of thoughts: good and bad, enlightened and confused, truthful and desirous. Thus, a saint enlightens his mind by following the righteous thoughts and expelling the evil ones. Okay, again, this is talking about the fact that how you use your human mind to try to get to your Buddha mind, okay? Because after all, like I said, this book, in a way, when you look at it, talks about the fact that, yeah, how is it you can use or try to differentiate between what is right and wrong, which again is not the Buddha nature mind, but the mind of the human mind, okay, the human person, because you are in a world where there is a dialectic, which means that there's a opposites of each other, good and bad, etc. Okay, so continue further. Every one of you should know that the soul is the true self, and everybody else, and everybody is a double-sided person. Okay, yeah, I'll go to that. Let me first read this. Okay, one side of a person is the physical body, which represents the false self, one which can produce feelings and awareness. The other side is the true self, that which has real existence. Okay, he's referring to the Buddha nature here. Okay, it's always enlightened, though its brightness may be covered over by the impurity of the false self. As I use the expression, I use the example of like the Buddha nature being encased in the human nature. Okay, most people are greedy and cover things. Okay, thus they are forever trapped in the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, sometimes called the transmigration of the soul or reincarnation, samsara, etc. Okay. These people also have unsettled minds which are full of vexations or annoyances, and they like to stubbornly cling to their own erroneous ideas and thoughts. Thus, all of these faults become very heavy burdens in such people's lives. To be a cultivator of Tao, one should assume all kinds of responsibilities and be able to see clearly through the transitory and phenomenal world. One should be able to calculate the deeds he can do which are within his capability and complete them. Keep his mind open to let the good thoughts and ideas reveal themselves, and should also be broad-minded. If a person can be willing to part with wealth, business, feelings, etc., then he can be free of burdens of life. As we all know, a very loving couple will usually grudge to part from one another. Likewise, if a person has a bad temper or has some flaws in his conduct, he will still grudge to correct them, for they belong to him. Okay? People are always reluctant to give up those deeds, feats, fame, and wealth that they own. Thus, the habit of grudging to give up is the heavy burden of a person's life. There is a saying: if a person is without any kind of burden, then he must be very relaxed and free. Okay, so what basically he's talking about here is that, yeah, we all have our our habits and all this stuff. Now here, Holy Shiva makes a point, interesting point. He says the reason why we are or we find it difficult, let's put it that way, we find it difficult to correct ourselves is because why? Because we gradually don't want to give it up? Because it seems like that's what it's trying to say here. We don't want to give it up. Why? Why is that?
I think that's part of us.
Yeah, that's part of us, but when you say it that way though, how does that reflect on us though? Does it mean that we are really not sincere? Are we insincere in our in our willingness or effort to try to change? Meaning the fact that we don't want to give up that desire or that whatever it may be, that bad habit.
And that I,
That's self.
that self,
Ego.
you can't let go.
For images, it's
Yeah, okay.
Into it.
Okay, well, that I agree. I would say, yeah, what you're describing of is the root of the problem. That's true, but let's just get a little bit more shallow here, not as deep, to the point where he says, why is it hard for you to give up a bad habit?
There's a satisfaction that you're looking for. That to satisfy your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, all your senses. But
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's endless.
We
people don't
think.
like to change either.
Well, you can say there's inertia. That's true. That's why it's habit. That's why habits are difficult to change, right? That's why they call habits because there's an inertia. But the key is, I think, it's the fundamental misunderstanding or wrong view that we think that all phenomena is real and is lasting. And so therefore, we tend to override, by using that view, by applying that view, we override that actually all is an illusion. And that our Buddha, that there is something that's that's higher, whatever, beyond, whatever, transcend, whatever, that's intangible, that's the, the real, Buddha nature that has neither this or that or whatever. Unfortunately, it's too high level, sometimes, it's 100%. So we have that wrong view. You could say fundamentally, that's the base cause. That our view is that we tend to think that, hey, this life is real. It's, it's worth living. That's what they say. It's worth living. Why? Because I have so much money. I can do whatever I want. I can do I can also help people. Yeah. But I could also indulge, whatever. So we tend to grasp. We have that wrong view from Buddha's point of view, right? That's wrong, and we think something that's impermanent is permanent. We think something that is filthy is pure. We think something that is suffering as pleasure, and we think something the four inverted views. What's the four? Anyway, all that. Okay, so that's
Yeah. So yes. So yeah. So in that sense, because first of all, yeah, it is true, as some of you mentioned that. Yeah, because we do get a satisfaction out of that habit or whatever, and therefore, and that satisfaction, unfortunately, is based on our own ignorance. Say that, hey, all this is what a phenomenal world. Okay, which Lecture Kai talks about. Okay, so therefore, in that sense, because we fail to really grasp or the reality or the correct view, as Lecture Kai mentions, therefore it is easy for us to get to know. It makes it easier to grudgingly give up. Okay, so that meaning that it's hard to give up. Okay, hard to correct ourselves. Okay, so. Okay, but anyway, so because of time, let me continue on further on. Okay, here he talks about Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, he says, give all the desires and ideas in your mind, then your mind will be peaceful and you will be awakened and enlightened in your mind. Thus, we can know that if a person's mind is peaceful, all his unrestrained thoughts or conduct will cease, and at the moment he'll be enlightened by his own very efforts. Hence, enlightenment can be attained at the moment one gives up and ceases to have thoughts and ideas in his mind. This condition is also called heaven in the mind. In Confucianism, it is said a person's mind should be perfectly peaceful, then he will reach the level called perfect goodness. A person's mind should often be in a state of tranquility and should be released from the illusions of thinking. Okay. Now, on the surface, it may say, what? Does it mean that I shouldn't be thinking? I shouldn't think? Okay, no. Okay, what it's trying to say is the fact that your mind is at peace in the sense that it does not allow external influences, I'll call it influences, to dwell in your mind, okay, to stay in your mind. Your mind still needs to think, okay, as thoughts. Now, it's true that some things are so automatic that you don't have to think about it, to do it, but you still nevertheless subconsciously have that thought. For example, if you're hungry, you're in your kitchen, you're at home, and you look in the fridge, and you say, "Oh, I'm hungry," so I go in the fridge, okay, and there's nothing to eat there. So what do you have to do? You have to start cooking, right? Well, that's all thinking. That's all thinking process that you need to think. But these things are very automatic because it's so innate in us that we do it. We seem to do it without thinking. It's like driving a car sometimes. You get to the point where you begin to drive a car and you're not really thinking about your driving. You're just driving, okay? But in reality, you're still thinking about your driving because you're still aware of what? Cars coming in front of you, behind you, etc., changing lanes. You're still aware of that. So, but it's just that we don't think of it as thinking, but you're really thinking about it still.
No, actually, the awareness is not thinking.
Well, but where does the awareness come from?
No, it's coming from Buddha nature. So, but it's not thinking. Thinking is something different. It's at the next level.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah, it depends on how you define it. Thinking. Okay, if you want to define it as it depends on how you define it.
You don't have to think.
Okay.
There is
If
no
you're aware, I agree.
You're just aware.
No,
You just see
you're
it,
talking
you
about
see
direct
that.
insight. Direct insight.
You see the cars. You don't have to think. Oh, there's a car.
No,
Right.
you-
no,
no.
none of that.
No.
So that's not.
That's a
not even
second step.
automatic.
Okay, wait, hold on a
Just
second.
awareness.
Okay.
Just awareness.
Actually, okay, no, okay. I want to say yes and no, okay, because I want to say this, okay. No, it's not semantics either. Let's assume that you're driving, okay, and then you're talking with your next door passenger, whatever. If you really are truly aware of what you're doing, right, then when a car pulls in front of you and it's too close, you would automatically, I gotta slow down, etc. But yet, that doesn't always happen, does it? You sometimes still hit that person's car. Why? Because you can say you're not fully aware. That's true. Okay, you're not fully aware because you're so involved with your conversation. So like, that's why they say, you shouldn't talk with your phone, right? Well, why do they have laws to say, you shouldn't talk, you should be hands-free, but even hands-free, same problem. The point is that it's a distraction, okay? So therefore, when we say we are aware, fully aware, if you truly are fully aware, okay, then you would know, you would react accordingly. But yet, we are not what? You can say, we're not aware of the fact, okay? So the awareness, but you say, wait a minute, the awareness comes from our Buddha nature. Shouldn't it be there all the time? No, right? Okay, but it's not there all the time. Okay, so therefore, so I guess it comes down to is what you are defining as when I say thinking. My thinking is my own definition is the fact that, when I say thinking, it's really, it is true that it means a conscious intention to do something. Okay, you create a conscious intention to do something. Okay, now, when you talk about things like becoming aware, if you were a baby, you should be aware too, right? You're aware of your surroundings, but you're not aware of, you don't put a baby in a driver's seat. Why? Because that person has to go through the thinking and training to learn how to drive first. And only after that, you can say, it becomes very automatic. Even though we don't say it's thinking, because some psychologists say, no, all these awareness stuff, it's really your subconscious thinking that's creating this, what we call awareness. Okay, some psychologists call it that. Some people say, no, that's not it either. So there's arguments between that. But the point is that, it's semantics, that's true. But in truth is the fact that, if you truly are aware of something that's happening around you, you would act accordingly if you truly are aware. But you are not aware sometimes. Or we say we get distracted. But being distracted means that what? That you're no longer aware? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so the whole idea of this is what I'm trying to say is that, when we do thinking, okay, we tend to thinking as thinking consciously. But there's also, according to psychologists, that is, there's also unconscious thinking or subconscious thinking, okay, that we are not aware of. And that is what they say drives us to be able to, react really quick to events, even though we don't plan, say, what should I do next? Because when you say, what should I do next? That's conscious thinking, that's true. But psychologists sometimes say, no, there's some subconscious thing that automatically, in a way, kicks in where you know what you have to do based on what? Your own experiences, your own past learning, training, etc. Okay, so, but anyway, again, that's a little bit of semantics here. Okay, so, but what he's trying to get here is the fact that if you truly are following your Buddha nature aspect, okay, then yes, you don't need to think. That's why in Lecture Liu's class, he talks about what? Dangsha. What is dangsha? To say what? At the moment. But at the moment, it's not to say that, I know everything what everything should be. How should I react and all that? Because you may encounter a situation that you never encountered before. Okay, so does that mean that at the moment I can react and know exactly what to do? Well, according to Liu Jiangshi, there's something called liao liao fenming. Okay, liao feng. But yet, all that liao liao fenming, or the, how would you translate liao liao fenming? A good translation. I'm trying to find a good translation.
Distinction or clear understanding.
Yeah, liao liao. That's what that means. Everything is clear, and you can differentiate.
You don't differentiate.
You don't. I thought it means differentiate.
No. Well,
It's
just,
what it is.
yeah. It's like you know it.
Yeah.
There's no.
But the problem is this though.
There's no question.
If you,
no
yeah.
doubts,
Okay.
no-
But let me ask you an example. Right. Okay.
There's nothing to follow after, actually.
Yeah, you would think that's the case, right? You would think that.
That's when-
But when we talk about liao liao fenming,
It's
because
it. That's it.
because
This is
yeah,
it.
That's it.
There's no color, there's no black and white.
right,
It's just
right,
You could
yeah,
say
yeah.
this,
But
it's like
yeah.
Tathagata, suchness.
But
It is.
it's still,
This-
nevertheless,
Exactly.
this is still relies on your own life experience. A good example I'll give you is this.
No, it's from a-
You're in a plane. The pilot has a heart attack. the flight attendant asks, is there a person who knows how to fly the plane? Nobody says yes. Now, if you're saying, wait, I have liao liao fuming, I'm fully aware of what's going on. Can you go and fly the plane?
Yeah.
You would think that seems the answer if you truly are, but you can't. You don't know how to fly a plane, right? So therefore, yeah, when we say liao liao fuming, it's just to mean that you can discern the situation that is true. But you also have to know what? Your own abilities.
Connect with our knowledge.
Yeah, because and if you don't have that knowledge, how do you connect to it? If you don't have the knowledge of flying a plane, you know how to drive a car, okay, fine. But fly a plane, if you don't have that knowledge, how do you connect to that?
Flying a plane, it belongs to function.
Right, no, that's true, that's true.
Application.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Actually, you should
But
be able to.
but you would think that you can, right? You would think. Would you like to try it? no. So
right
so
now we can't imagine.
yeah, right. It's
That's it. I
right.
don't know. I'm not
So
very
so
surgeon.
yeah, or like do surgery, whatever, you can't. So that's why liao liao fuming really just also let you understand that. That's why there's this discernment, being able to discern that, yeah, okay, this is a situation, but also implies that you also know your own abilities, your own knowledge, or whatever. Okay, you may try to help out, and yeah, okay, you can try to guide the plane with guidance from people, whatever, but it does not necessarily mean that you automatically know about it necessarily. Okay, so anyway, going further, okay, the last part is just to cultivate oneself means to follow the doctrines, and the person can perform accordingly. He will be able to suppress and extinguish the desires and ideas in his mind. Therefore, a person will be able to enlighten his own mind if he's able to awaken to truth. And if a person is able to have a tranquil mind, he will always act accordingly to the truth. Basically, this is just talking about, again, the fact that what Lecture Liu talks about in his lectures about what? Letting go? Yeah. The more you function, the less you are distracted, the less you have, the less you have obstructions to your manifestation of Buddha nature. Okay, so just to go to the conclusion, when a person awakens to truth, he will realize the meaning of life. When he realizes the truth of righteousness and wrongfulness, he will understand that all things he has done has always been involved with both gains and losses. That's when you really understand your human life. When a person acts without understanding, he is called foolish. When a person realizes that he should do, but just not want to perform it, he's called remiss. Okay, neglect. I guess that's another definition of the word. If there is something beyond a person's achievement, and he does not mislead others to believe he is capable of doing it, then he owns the inward morality of his mind. Basically, this just means, in fact, like the example I gave you about the plane. You know your own capabilities, but you don't mislead others about it. Okay, then you are I guess you could say, in control or understand your own self. If a person is able to achieve what he has claimed possible, then he owns the outward morality of his conduct, meaning the fact that, yeah, he really truly has credibility about, what he says. Okay, so is it time? Okay, all right, okay. So anyway, I'm sorry that I did not get to talk about the second topic, which is talk about ideas of the mind. He's talking about what we in Chinese call nian. Nian. Yeah. Nian. Is that pronounced right? Nian. Okay, nian. Okay. Basically, nian is like thoughts?
Ideas,
Thoughts. Well, nian, by definition, it translates as thoughts, right? Thoughts or ideas or whatever. Okay. So anyway, but in that chapter, he only gives examples of, what is considered good nian and what is considered bad nian. That's pretty much it. Okay. And in that chapter, he just gives examples of that, really. So, if you have a chance, you can read over that. But anyway, the important thing is that he's talking about here is the fact that he is talking about the human nature aspect. So that's why he does talk about good and bad, etc. Okay, and so therefore he wants the the audience who's listening to him is to basically get an understanding that we need to have, I'll call it control, I guess, control of our human nature, our human mind. Okay, and more importantly, to truly try to achieve what enlightenment, for Buddha, you need to let go a lot of things, okay, and to have your human nature be transparent to your Buddha nature, so that your Buddha nature can manifest, and so therefore we can act accordingly to our Buddha nature versus our human nature. Okay, so I'll conclude there, and I wish to thank the grace of heaven, virtue of our Master the Professor, that I have this opportunity to present this class. And if there's anything that I may have said incorrectly, I hope the Buddhas and saints will forgive me. Thank you very much.